Hi there, Smart Driver. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about getting a commercial license, driving a truck, driving a bus, changing careers, all of the fear and trepidation that goes along with that, and starting to earn money with your driver's license. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. All right, well, that didn't work out with the intro there, so carrying on here with all of this. Hello, everybody. Tim is here from Vancouver Island. Tim has a. I can't talk now. Drive Smart BC is a great resource if you want to know anything about driving, you want to know anything about laws and legislation concerning driving and traffic. Tim has a great website there, so Happy New Year to you as well, Tim. Yeah, so we're having some glitches here going into the new year with the tech and those types of things. I had some trouble connecting to the live stream when I first started too, and it's been doing that for everybody. So, and Corey is here, Bricks for Wheels. Corey is the moderator and keeps all the bad people out. So yes, so tonight we're talking about getting a CDL license. And Margaret, how are you? Margaret is getting her license there in Brooklyn, and was able to get out and practice in the test area where she's actually going to be taking her license. So Sharon's here as well. Rocky's here. Hello, everybody. Hopefully 2021 is the beginning of the end of all of this craziness of COVID, and we can begin to get back to some semblance of normalcy, if there is such a thing. You know, I say that with a bit of reservation. But anyway, here we are. And Tim, you're most welcome. Past manual restriction status removed. Okay, you have returned, Jonathan. Awesome. Welcome back, Jonathan. That's great. Sounds like you had some success there with your CDL license, even despite COVID and all the craziness. Happy New Year, Catherine. All right, so basically what we're going to do here is I'm going to do a bit of a presentation about whether it's worth getting your CDL license in the year 2021, and I would argue that in fact it is. With we can look back on the year of 2020 with the COVID and shutdowns. The trucking industry was one of the few industries who was not affected by COVID. There obviously were some safety precautions put in place and those types of things, but for the most part, truck drivers continue to work. They continue to move up and down the road. So not only is the profession of trucking and bus driving recession proof, it's also COVID proof, which, stands the test of time, that the only unemployed truck driver is the one that doesn't want to work. There's really no other reason that truck drivers are going to be unemployed. And yes, for some of you, it's not going to be the job that you want, especially if you're going to be working long haul, but there are many, many options within the trucking industry. Logging, flat deck, hauling timber, hauling steel, running regional, working in the city, and those types of things. So there's a lot of options with truck driving that I would really encourage you to explore and look at. And next week what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about funding for truck driving school, because it is expensive. There's no doubt about it, especially here in provinces in Ontario and other places here where they've brought in the mandatory entry-level training. They brought it in Alberta and Ontario. I think it's in Manitoba as well. They haven't brought it in to the United States yet, but it's coming. It's simply a matter of time that they're going to bring in the mandatory entry-level training in the States as well. Unfortunately, what's happened with the mandatory entry-level training is that it's driven up the cost of going to truck driving school, because now there's a mandatory time of anywhere from 100 to 120 hours of training, and it's $5,000 to $10,000 now. But there is funding available, government funding and those types of things, so you shouldn't have to pay for it yourself. So explore that, look at that, ask questions. There's also a video here that Corey will put up for you, 5 questions to ask truck driving schools. And I'll talk a little bit about that. A little bit more about funding and a little bit more about things that you need to ask truck driving schools and whatnot. Margaret asked, you need a CDL license to drive Amazon vans? Probably not. I'm not familiar with how big Amazon vans are. We don't have them here, but as long as, usually it's triple axle, so 3 axles under the vehicle, you need a class 3 license and it over a certain weight. So anyway, Okay, so getting over to the presentation here, without further ado, we'll do that. And then I'll come back and answer any questions you have. So, truck driving school, what to expect at truck driving school, and is it worth it? And as I said, yes, it is worth it to get your commercial license, even if it's a small bus and you're working for a local charity or you're working for a church or those types of things. Yes, it is worth having your CDL license. Even if it's part and parcel of your job. So, for example, you're working for a children's center, doing daycare and those types of things, and they have small buses, then you're going to have to move the kids around in the bus. Then it's going to increase your pay because now you're more valuable to them because you can both, look after the kids, do activities with the kids, and drive the bus and move them around and those types of things. So, yes, it is very valuable to even get a small bus, less than 25 passengers. Okay, so somebody said you don't need a CDL license for an Amazon van, so it's probably just a passenger van then, you know, and you don't need a commercial license for those. All right, so for those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver through most of the 1990s. Went to Australia in 2002, drove for Greyhound there, and one of the regional bus lines, which connects kind of the train system up and those types of things. 1997, I became a licensed commercial driving instructor, teaching mostly truck driving and buses and cars as well. And then in 2006, I graduated with a legal history degree from the University of Melbourne, and went on, taught at the universities for a few years, and then went back to teaching truck driving when life fell apart and went dark, as I say. And about 5 years ago, I started the YouTube channel. I've been teaching online ever since, and it's been really, really awesome, helping a lot of people. New video this week, 5 defensive driving strategies to help keep you safe. And of course, if you watch that video, Corey will put that up for you. The number one strategy that you can employ is space around your vehicle, and particularly space in front of your vehicle. Make sure that you manage and keep space in front of your vehicle all the time. Protect yourself from space invaders. Of course, I go on to talk about a few other things as well in the video, but great video there with lots of great tips. Corey will put the video up for you on playlists and look at how to read road signs for CDL truck and bus drivers. You must read and glean information from road signs at a much higher level as a truck driver. And a story about that, I was training a new driver that just come out of truck driving school, and I kept asking him as we're driving down the road, what was the last sign? What was the last traffic sign? He just didn't get it, and it was about a dozen signs I'd asked him, and he just wasn't paying attention to what the signs were. And I explained to him that he had to read road signs at a higher level and take note of that information, because now he was driving a larger vehicle, and it was important, critical to his staying alive on the roads. And then the last one, we went past the speed sign, he didn't know what it was, and I finally just pulled the truck over. I told him to pull the truck over, and I made him run back about a half a kilometer and look at the sign. And so, he finally got it when I made him run back and look at the sign. So you need to do that. All right, different kinds of work as a truck driver. Okay, so there's pride in the job. You're always employed. We talked about that with COVID. There's different kinds of jobs. You can work flat deck, general freight, hauling vans, reefer trailers, which are temperature controlled units. They heat and are cold. You can haul groceries. Specialty trailers, hauling carpet, hauling pipe, flat deck, logging trucks, all chip trucks. They're all here running up and down through Vernon. There's different kinds of work. Trucking is challenging. No 2 days are the same, and if something goes wrong and whatnot, there's always a challenge. It's not a 9-to-5 job, and if you eventually after your first year, you're going to make decent money driving truck. Some of these long haul drivers running for Schneider, running for JB Hunt and other large trucking companies, these guys are making $75,000-$80,000 a year, and they're it's a pretty decent job. They're home, got good home time and those types of things. So there is fairly decent money. I mean, if you decide that you're going to work around town and you're just going to drive in town, you're still going to make $40,000-$50,000 a year, which is a lot more money than, say, some of you who might be working at Walmart or working at McDonald's or those types of things. It's substantially more money than what you can do doing other work. So you need to get your license. You need to go to truck driving school. I do encourage you to work on getting your tractor trailer license as opposed to just a straight truck like a dump truck or a straight van or whatnot, because it's a little bit more money, but the return on investment is going to be huge. So the 5 components of a truck driving school for a tractor trailer license are turning, pre-trip inspection, shifting, backing, and coupling. And yes, you can get an automatic transmission license driving tractor trailer in this day and age, but there's still enough manual transmissions out there that it's going to be tough for you to get a job with just an automatic transmission license. So I really do encourage you to do the extra work and get a manual transmission job, or a manual transmission license rather. The toughest part of coming out of truck driving school with your license is that you don't have any experience, and the old adage applies. You can't get experience without a job, and you can't get a job without experience. So for the first 6 to 8 months, you basically got to take anything that you can get. Okay, you gotta beg, borrow, and steal a truck. You've got to work really, really hard to get a job, because most trucking companies are not going to hire you without experience. So you got to figure out how to do that. Even if it's driving a dump truck around, eventually you can drive a dump truck around, and a dump truck with a pup on the back of it is a class 1 vehicle. So you need to do that, okay? And we can talk more about that in the question and answer period. All right, so the other thing you need to do is the air brakes. It's the most technical course that you're going to take to get your truck driving license. Unfortunately, in North America, and this includes the United States and here in Canada and Ontario and British Columbia, the air brake course is outdated. It's 40 years old. It's never been updated, and the bureaucrats continue to insist that all of this peripheral information is important, and it's really not. You need to know how to test the system and ensure that the system is working, but the system is more or less bulletproof. There's so much information that's redundant in the course, but you need to know it for the purposes of getting your license and passing your CDL air brakes, and that's it. Okay. Okay, Tim, I'll talk about that as soon as I get finished the presentation here. Okay, braking a larger vehicle, valves, and systems. So all of that's there. And if you go over to my website and click on the commercial drivers menu item, there's a whole section on air brakes there, so you can get a lot of information there as well. Okay, more driving knowledge, road signs at a higher level, heights and dimensions of the vehicle. You have to realize that you're driving a vehicle now that's 75 feet in length, which is 23 meters, and you're going to be a maximum height of 4.15 meters or 13 feet 6 inches. Okay, and then the weight of the vehicle is going to be somewhere between 10 and 15 times more than what your average vehicle is going to be. In the States, most tandems, so 2 axles on the back of the truck, 2 axles on the semi-trailer, are going to run out at 80,000 pounds, approximately 40 tons. All right, so a lot more weight, bigger dimensions. You've got to pay attention to height signs now, because if you take the top of the truck off, wow, they the infamous they get really excited when you do that. And, it's like doing a pre-trip inspection and you forget to check the oil and you blow up a $25,000 diesel engine. They tend to get really excited about that. So these are the kinds of things that now that you're working as a commercial driver and you're getting paid, there's certain things that you need to do. Checking the oil on your unit every day is one of those things that you need to do. Understanding height signs and the maximum height of your vehicle is one of those things that you need to understand as a professional commercial driver. So get it all, truck and bus drivers, and I talked about this before, with your tractor trailer license. Get your tractor trailer license, and if you decide that you go and drive tractor trailer and you don't want to drive tractor trailer anymore because you don't like it for whatever reason, you're by yourself all the time, you want to try and have some company and those types of things. And this is eventually what I did. And then when I moved to Australia, instead of driving truck, I went and drove buses for Greyhound. So then I got experience driving buses for Greyhound. So this is the other thing about getting a tractor trailer license. In most states and in most provinces, you're going to be able to get all of the different licenses with that one license, and then you can move around between trucks and buses and those types of things. So there's a lot more opportunity and variation in the jobs that you potentially could have as a truck driver. Now, one of the other things that you need to know in terms, especially for truck drivers, this isn't so much for bus drivers, a little bit for bus drivers. If something goes wrong, then you're going to need to talk to a dispatcher. But for the most part, dispatchers, their role in the trucking companies is to match available drivers and equipment with available freight. So they're always looking for loads. and they're trying to match you up with those loads so that you can keep going up and down the road. Now, if you're working for a local company, they're going to have dedicated loads and deliveries every day. Regional companies, for the most part, but they're going to have to get backhauls and whatnot. If you're hauling fuel, this is not an issue. If you're working for a long haul company, though, this is what dispatchers are doing all the time. You want to have a fairly cordial relationship with dispatchers because, in my experience, I've met a few that are vengeful, and they will leave you sitting if you upset them. So try to keep a good relationship with them and keep in contact with your dispatcher and let them know what's going on, especially if something goes wrong or it's beyond your pay grade, for example. And I can tell you stories about times that you should be contacting dispatch and talking to dispatch and whatnot. All right. And LTA Productions here says that dispatch's lifeline is a school bus driver. So yeah, and we could talk a little bit about that as well, because I wouldn't have thought about that, Productions. So good luck on your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. And we'll get back over here and start answering some questions that people have. Bear with me. There we go. All right, so we're back, and Corey's put those videos up. Thanks for that. Erat from Toronto, how are you? Mark, B in Ontario allows you to drive C and D and E, and it is a CDL. Yeah, so Mark, for those of us in Canada, CDL tends to be an American term. CDL stands for Commercial Driver's License, so it's basically bus, truck. And exactly what you said there, in the province of Ontario, with a B license, you can drive all the classes underneath it. Here in British Columbia, if you get a Class 1 license, you can drive everything underneath it, which is different than Ontario. Same as in the States. A lot of states are the same thing. If you get a Class A or Class 1, you can drive all the other vehicles underneath it, your bus and those types of things. Ontario tends to be a little bit different. It's kind of like Ontario in Canada and New York in the US. They tend to like to have their own rules, but for the most part, that's how it works out. Gordon says some dispatchers need dispatcher. Yes, and there's that old joke of the truck driver gets pulled over by the DOT officer, and the DOT officer says, "Oh, what are you hauling?" He says, "Oh, I got a load of dispatcher brains on," which means that dispatchers aren't that bright and the truck is empty. So there's that joke too. But like I said, keep a cordial relationship with dispatch, especially if you're working with them all the time, because they're going to help you out, they're going to keep you working, and they're going to keep you moving up and down the road. They're really the reason that you're going to start making money, especially if you're working long haul. So Tim asked me to elaborate on good home time for those that don't think there is something that is not Monday to Friday. So Monday to Friday, so say you start working long haul and you're out, most of the time companies, one of the complaints for long haul companies is that they don't get their guys home often enough. And this used to be a problem in the old days, and I'm not saying this is industry wide. There are some companies still that will send you out for 4 to 6 weeks and you won't be home for 4 to 6 weeks, but that is more or less gone now. Long haul companies know that if they want to keep their drivers around, they have to get them home at least 2 days a week. And most of the time they try to get you home on the weekend. And the way that it works with most companies, and of course this isn't always it's not ideal because it's trucking, right? They'll try and get you home Friday at some point, and then usually you'll ship back out on Sunday because you need to deliver on Monday. So usually that's what they'll do. Or if you've got a really long haul, like for example, say you're running from California and you're running over to New York and you're running long haul, then they're going to ship you out on Sunday morning so that you can be there Tuesday morning to unload and then reload and then be back for Friday. And that's generally the way they try and do it now. So they're really working hard to try and get you home with 2 days a week is what the bigger companies are trying to do. Because it's just the way that the industry has been shaped by the fact that they're having difficulty keeping drivers. And just want to clarify something, they continue to perpetuate the myth that there's a driver shortage within the truck driving industry. There's not a driver shortage. There's a driver retention problem. And this is part of the problem. One is the pay, one is poor equipment, not getting home time, those types of things. So there's a lot of factors in terms of truck driving that are influencing the industry and forcing the industry to change and those types of things. So good home time is a couple of days a week is what they're trying to do. All right. Flavored, hello, my friend. Jonathan, now that I've earned my Class A license, I'm going to get my remaining CDL endorsements, plus I found beginner CDL Class A jobs to get started when the time comes. Yes, excellent. That is excellent, Jonathan. Martin, CDL laws change in the U.S. if you are driving in from Canada or the other way around, trucking over 23 years and counting. Yes. So, Martin, I think what you're talking about is logbook rules. Yes, the hours of service or the amount of time that you can actually drive the vehicle and mandatory brakes and those types of things. Yes, hours of service regulations in the United States are different than they are in Canada, and they're less in the US. You can only drive for a maximum of 10 hours in the States, whereas here in Canada you can drive for a maximum of 13 hours in a 24-hour period. So know that if you're working between countries, if you're pulling freight from the US into Canada, that you have more hours in Canada. But once you go back to the States, remember also you're within a work cycle, right? In the States, you're working 7 days, 70 hours in 7 days, and you have to stay within that work cycle. You can't go over that work cycle for your logbook, or you're going to be in violation. And if you get pulled over by DOT, you could potentially get a fine. So know those, you got to know those logbooks. And what I recommend to truck drivers and bus drivers that are moving between Canada and the States is just to stay on the American rules. It's just a lot easier. Don't try and flip back and forth between Canada and the US, especially for newer drivers. That's what I recommend. Flavor, just watching the stream, will be ready for my road test in a couple of days. That is awesome, Flavor. You're going to do great. Jonathan, truck driver retention. I saw a video of an experienced driver who said the exact same thing. I'm going to keep that in mind when I select my driving career. And basically, Jonathan, what I recommend for you, as I've said here previously, is that, for the first 6-8 months, just take whatever you can get. Just get whatever experience you can. Even if it's driving a dump truck, pulling a pup, working in construction, do that, get your experience, because after 6 to 8 months of driving experience, then you can go to any company. You can say, listen, I have 6 to 8 months of driving experience, and you can pretty much do what you want, which is fairly easy. Okay, so, and Mark, good luck on that with your Class A tomorrow. That's awesome. Gordon, how badly hit was the trucking industry throughout the ongoing year of COVID? Gordon, I don't think that the trucking industry was affected at all by COVID. They were one of the COVID-proof industries. Truck drivers kept moving. We still wanted freight. We still needed freight. We still needed groceries, those types of things. So trucking was not affected. It's recession-proof and proven itself to be COVID-proof as well. LTA Productions, we're having the same issues in busing. Everyone comes from the B license and leaves for transit. It's what I'm doing. Yeah, so same thing with school bus. Unfortunately, driving a school bus, as LTA will say, you're only working 6 or 8 months a year, and you're only working in the morning when school goes into session, and then you're in the afternoon, you take the kids back home. So a lot of these people who are driving school buses, they don't want to continue to drive school buses because the hours aren't very good, the pay's not very good. So they go in, work as a school bus driver for a little while, get their experience, and then they go and work for a transit company because it's steady work. 2 days off a week, plus, after 3 or 4 months, most transit companies are unionized, and you're going to make fairly decent money working for a transit, full benefits plus $25 or $26 an hour. So you need to get your experience, and then you can go and work where you want to go, and you're going to make decent money doing it. Okay? Jonathan, part of the reason why I chose to upgrade to Class A is because I want more choices in my driving career. I don't regret getting my Class B, but the B, I felt had limited choices. And that's exactly the point, Jonathan, that I want to emphasize to other people who are watching here on the live stream and other people who might be considering getting their Class 1 license, is that if you get a Class B license and you're just driving a school bus, or you're driving a bus, or you get a Class 3 license, or it's different things, but it's essentially a dump truck, right? It's a 3-axle truck. You're limited. And as well, as I said in the presentation, if you get your Class A, Class 1 license, your tractor trailer license, and say, for example, you go to work for an excavating company. Well, excavating companies are only going to hire class 1 drivers. They're not going to hire class 3 drivers. And the reason for that is if somebody's sick, so say Joe's sick and Joe's a class 1 license, dispatch or whoever is responsible for finding a replacement driver to come in and cover the work, they're going to start going down the list and they're going to go, oh, Mark can't work because he's a class 3 license. Tim can't work, he's a class 3 license. Oh, okay, class A. And then, whereas if they hire everybody in the excavating company, the dump truck company, with a class 1, they can just start at the top of the list and go down until they find somebody that's going to come in and cover the shift. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that if you get a job, you don't like the job isn't working out for you, you can simply walk across the street to the next trucking company, because they tend to congregate all in one area, and you can go into dispatch or into the operations manager and you can say, listen, I've got 3 months experience driving truck and I want a job. And they're going to say, do you have a class 1 license? And you're going to say, yes, I do. And you're going to get hired. So there's, as Jonathan just said, there's far more option for you, an opportunity with your class 1 license. So initially it looks more daunting because you're like, oh my God, look at the size of this truck. And then you're also looking at it and you're going, okay, do I want to pay $3,000 and get a dump truck license and get started? Or do I want to pay $6,000 and get my tractor trailer license? Well, here's the other thing about going to truck driving school and making that consideration. First of all, if you get a class 3 license or a class B license, as Jonathan did, it's tougher to get a job, okay? Because all these jobs are filled up. It's really tough. You're going to end up driving a recycling truck or a garbage truck or something like that, and you're going to do a job you don't like. And then you're going to say, oh, I'm going to come back and do it. Well, you won't come back and do it. So just put the time and energy into it. Beg, borrow, steal the money somewhere, because it's only 80%. 80% of what you're going to learn with the smaller truck, it's only 20% more to get your tractor trailer license, because really all you have to learn is to back up and to maneuver that bigger vehicle around the city. So for the little bit more effort up front, you're going to have bigger opportunities once you finish and once you get your license. So that's really what I would encourage you to do in terms of getting your tractor trailer license and going to truck driving school. So Tim has suggested here, share some wisdom on finding a good employer. Okay, so I'll cover that, Tim. Just back up here. I'll answer a couple of questions here and then I'll come back to that. Okay. Flavored, part of me is nervous, but watching driving tutorials and subscribing to channels has helped me ease my self-doubt and I have in my mind. Flavor, just remember to breathe. Do what you need to do. Focus on what you're going to do. You're going to do fine on your driving test there, my friend. Gordon actually went past the school bus stop sign on a large road that there was legislation passed to install cameras. They've yet to install them. I avoided handcuffs. Excellent. It's always good to stay at jail. Mark, what about hazmat, tankers, and other endorsements? Do we get those from schools? Mark, you can. You can get your hazmat and your tankers and other endorsements. All of that can obviously get done through truck driving school. Now, if you do go to work for a company that says hauls hazmat or hauls fuel, they're going to do their own training when they hire you. So don't get too excited about that and, working working to get those, putting all your energy and time in there to get those endorsements, because if you get a job that hauls dangerous goods or you get a job hauling tankers and those types of things, they're going to train you as well, because they have to provide you with that training so that you're safe on the roads and know what the job entails and those types of things. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so the first thing I need you to do if you're going to go to truck driving school, and one of the things, and I know that a lot of you, this is becoming more and more rare. One of the things I really encourage you to do when you're picking your truck driving school or you're going to any school for driver training, stick with one instructor, especially when it comes to truck driving, because you show me 50 driving instructors, I'll show you 50 ways to drive a truck. Every one of them has different language. They have different things that they emphasize. They have different things that they think are important. They have different experience and those types of things. And you get in a truck and you're in with one instructor one day, and then you're in with a different instructor the next day, and they have different language for the pre-trip inspection, which is something you're going to do every day and have to have in place for your driver's test. It's just going to frustrate you. It's really really going to frustrate you, because you're getting different information, you're getting different emphasis on pieces of information, different language, different terminology. So I really encourage you to work with a truck and driving school where it's one-on-one instruction with the same driving instructor. Don't go to a school that moves you around between instructors. I've worked in schools like that, and for me as a driving instructor, it was incredibly frustrating because the student would say to me, "Oh, I'd say do this or do that," and it's like, "Oh, the other instructor didn't tell me to do that," and it's just you just shake your head and you're just like, "Okay, whatever." So work with one instructor. You're going to get more information and you're going to get it faster because you're going to get consistency in what you're doing. So that's one thing I emphasize in terms of picking your truck driving school. Now, in terms of finding an employer for trucking, I encourage new students fresh out of truck driving school to work with the bigger companies like Schneider National in the States. They have training programs. They have mentorships. Challenger here in Canada is one of the bigger companies. They have mentorships, and I really encourage you to work with a company that has a mentorship, that somebody that you can drive around with for 3 or 4 months. They can show you how to go across the border. They can show you how to deal with paperwork, bills of lading, logbooks, those types of things. Because yes, you're going to touch on all of this, or you're going to take a course when you're in truck driving school. But when you're on the road and you're living in a truck and you're trying to figure out how to do logbooks, and you don't want to get a fine because the fines are not cheap. They're $160, $170 American. So you want to know how to do that. You want to know how to communicate with dispatch. You want to know how to use the satellite system. You want to know how to use GPS, how to get in and out of shipping, into where you're making your deliveries and into the docks and those types of things. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the first few months, and the learning curve is it's like straight up. So I encourage you as a new driver to consider those bigger companies. And for some of you in the States, in the US, some of these bigger companies will actually pay for your training, and then you have to agree to sign on for a couple of years to work for them. So that's another option for you as well in terms of funding and getting your truck driving school paid for. Now, working for a bigger company, one of the things that you need to do, and this pretty much goes for not just trucking and driving bus, but it goes for just about any job that you're looking for. Simply go into the yard and look at their trucks and see what their trucks look like. Especially if it's a long haul company. How old is their equipment? Is their equipment longer than 10 years old? Or is all of their equipment newer than 5 years? Or is it older than 5 years? Okay, Tim, have a good night, my friend. All the best for supper there. So if the equipment's older than 5 years, it's probably a company you don't want to work for, because you're going to be sitting on the road, you're going to be broken down all the time. And I've worked for companies like that. The busking company that I worked for in Australia, I spent a lot of time sitting on the side of the road with broken down equipment. And, this is not to say that newer equipment isn't going to break down on you, because I have been left on the side of the road in 6-week-old trucks too, where the drive shaft fell out of them. But newer equipment is going to give you less trouble, and it's going to be a better company, and you're probably going to get paid. The guy that I worked for on the island, the truck driving school, he had a bit of a tractor service there, and he was moving freight around on the island and those types of things. This guy had absolute junk, right? And he'd bring new drivers in, and they'd go to work for him, and he'd be like, "Oh, they don't know this and they don't know that." And it's like, yeah, they don't know how to drive junk, and I used to kind of laugh and chuckle my head, and eventually I laughed out of frustration, because I was just like, you can't expect people to work under those conditions. So you need to look at the equipment. The other thing is just how do they treat you? Do they treat you well? Do they treat you like a human being, or are they just, talking to you as if, you're just another indentured servant that needs to work there and do as you're told, and those types of things. So there has to be some say in what's going on in those types of things. And basically paperwork, there's a couple of pages, commercial drivers. Look at the employment menu item over on the Smart Drive Test website as well. That'll get you in. Figure out how to write a resume, how to write a cover letter, because this, they're going to look at your cover letter, they're going to look at your resume, and they're going to say, okay, this person has all the paperwork together, and it's a reflection of your ability to do paperwork when you're on the job, because you have to do paperwork. You have to hand in paperwork, and you have to hand it in on time, because logbooks, trip sheets, bills of lading, all of those types of things, all of that paperwork has to be handed in so that the company can bill the company that wanted them to ship the freight, and they can get paid, and in turn they can pay you. So it kind of all works together, that you have to be able to do your job for the company to get paid, and them in turn to pay you. Okay? So, Jaden, how are you, my friend? When I was doing my New Year's Eve tradition, but to where were you, Jaden, on New Year's Eve? Okay. Con, I have my F license here in Ontario. We'll be going for my BZ with my company. What's the biggest challenge, you'd say, between driving smaller buses to larger coaches and double deckers? The biggest challenge is obviously you're driving a larger vehicle, so you have to know how high your vehicle is and make sure that you keep space in front of your vehicle, that 4 to 5 second following distance, and as well make sure that you always stop in traffic so that you can see the tires in front of you making clear contact with the pavement. Those are going to be your two biggest challenges when you're driving your larger BZ bus, those types of things there. Okay? There are many schools and what to look for, and yes. So the other thing with the driving school, make sure that you go on Google, look at the reviews on Google. Don't go to a driving school that has a rating of anything less than 4. Okay, just don't. It's not worth your time. You're going to be frustrated in those types of things. So look for a driving school that has a rating higher than 4. And you might, depending on where you are and how far you have to go to a driving school, you may have to settle with a driving school that moves you around between driving instructors. But I disagree with it. And driving schools will say to you, oh, well, you're going to get more experience. No, you're not going to get more experience. You're really not, because there's so much that you have to learn, and there's so much you have to take on board just to pass your Class 1 license or your bus license, that being with different driving instructors is just going to confuse you, and it's going to frustrate you. So I don't agree with that at all. Okay, Jaden, did I miss part of that message because you went somewhere? Okay, I'm missing a big part of the story there. Jaden, there's a lot of the story missing. You went somewhere and you were doing something for New Year's Eve, and then you called the police. Okay, an old Crown Vic. Okay, so you called 911. Okay, well, if you don't feel safe, then that's what you need to do to keep yourself safe. All right. Gordon, how long does it take to start eating well when you are living in a truck? I've heard testimonies of truckers starving at the beginning. Gordon, I think what you're talking about is owner-operators driving a truck. That's a whole different live stream. That's a whole different conversation, because trucks are expensive. There's big expenses that go out. They take a lot of fuel. So, truck drivers, you got to talk about whether it's a driver or whether it's an owner-operator. If that's an owner-operator, that part I can understand that they're not eating, because they can barely afford to put fuel in the truck, let alone eat and those types of things. Robin, things are well, and I'm hoping things are well with you as well, my friend. And Corey got that up about truck driving jobs, resumes, and cover letters. So have a look at that blog post, and that will show you how to do your resume, how to do your cover letter. And the other thing is, there's lots of online services here. Just type that in, and probably for less than $20 or $30, you can get somebody else to put all of that together for you if you give them the information. And that will really help you out in terms of finding a job. Now, just kind of an overview of finding a job. Don't just reply to advertisements for truck driving companies. You'll never get a job that way, because if there is an advertisement for a truck driving company, trust me, there will have been 100, 150 applications for that one job. So it's very likely that you're going to get stuck in the slush pile. So when you just want to start calling up trucking companies and say, listen, are you hiring drivers? Can I submit an application? Can I bring it in and give it to you? Yes, you can. What time works for you? And you set up an appointment. You put on some nice clothes. You go in and Jack Smith, who is the operations manager, you go in and talk to Jack Smith, hand him your resume, and they say, thank you very much. Okay, you got your little 2-minute interview with Jack Smith, the operations manager at the trucking company. That's the way that you want to get hired, because now you've had your little mini interview and they're most likely to phone you back because they can put a face with your name on your cover letter and your resume. And that's what you need to do. If you just fire it off in an email or you fire it off in the post or whatnot, it's very unlikely that you're going to get hired. So you got to take it in. You got to hand it in. And after you hand it in to them, you say, listen, when can I expect to hear back from you? And they'll say, oh, I'll call you back within the week. If they don't call you back, then you get on the telephone, you say, hey, listen, because we're all busy. I'm incredibly busy. And unfortunately, there's lots of comments and lots of emails that I don't get back to because I'm busy. It's not because I'm ignoring you. So you just need to phone and say, hey, have you made a decision yet? And they say yes or no. And you say, thank you very much for your time. As long as you're polite, you're not bugging us. So know that, okay? Critrix, new to BC, would you recommend Valley Driving School for Class 1? I haven't heard anything bad about Valley Driving School, and lots of students go there. They're a good company. They have nice equipment. So, and I would just look, before I would make your choice, have a look at their reviews on Google and see what they have to say. Okay? I was on the sidewalk, and that's when the whole thing started, when I was waving my police flag for the New Year's tradition. Oh, okay. Positive energy. Where are my traffic offices? I'm going to be doing that. No, I'm going to be doing that. Okay. Jaden, were you in a questionable area of town? Was that what happened, or they just showed up and you didn't really know what was going on? Okay. Jonathan, I stuck with New York Commercial Driving School. It's the same school that has helped me get both my Class B and my Class A. I also had the same instructor to also help me on both. And that's really great, Jonathan, that you can have the same instructor in the same school for both licenses. That works out really well for you in terms of getting your commercial license. So that's really awesome that you can do that. All right. Mark, do the research on schools. I talked to lots and tried 2 before I put down the big bucks. All schools are not equal. Read the Google reviews. Absolutely read the Google reviews. Read what other people say to them. And, you know, some of these people you could get a hold of. You know, it's not hard to find people in this day and age. You know, get a hold of them on Facebook. Get a hold of them on Instagram. See what their experience was at the truck driving school. Because as Mark said, it's a lot of money. You're putting down a lot of money. So make sure that you have good experience going to truck driving school. You know, and you know, perhaps the other thing is with me, you know, when I'm teaching people how to drive truck, I'm a bit of a hard ass, and I'll be right up front about that. The reason I was a hard ass is because if I'm nice to you and being all namby-pamby and it's like, oh, that's okay, or, you know, no, you know, okay, we'll get it on the next turn, that's okay. You know, life isn't like that, and truck driving isn't like that, especially if you're doing long haul and you're by yourself and you're trying to figure out how to get in somewhere. It's tough. And so, you know, with my students, I was pretty tough on them because I was trying to prepare them for a driving job, working in the industry and being there. So I was thinking that, you know, being a hard ass was really helping them out in terms of working in the truck driving industry and those types of things. So that's what I was doing. DC, do I need a number of years of driving experience to apply for a Class B CDL license? No, you just need to be a certain age, DC, is the way that it works with commercial licenses. It's not about experience and those types of things. Gordon, is it probably best to meet your future boss at a bar when he is in touch? No, not so much, Gordon. You just need to follow through. You need to be proactive. And I'll tell you another story. We had a guy at the truck driving school. He wanted to work for a particular company, and he had his mind set on working for this company. Well, he went down and he said he put in his application, those types of things. He talked to the manager and whatnot, and they said, no, you know, we're not hiring right now. We can't afford it and whatnot. He said, you know, I really want to work here. He says, I'll do whatever it takes to work here. And, you know, he showed them that he was motivated, right? And this is what companies want. They want to know that you're motivated. And so he came in the next day and he sat in the office and he says, "Oh, is there any truck driving jobs?" "No, that's okay." He said, "Oh, is it okay if I sit here? Is that all right?" And they're like, "Yep, that's okay." And he sat there the first day, he sat there the second day, he came back the third day, and on the third day one of the drivers didn't show up and they were short-handed and they didn't have a driver, and they said to him, "Can you take this truck to this address?" They gave him an address and he said, "Yeah, I can do that." And he got in the truck and away he went. And he worked part-time for them for 2 months. And then after 2 months, he was brought on full-time. So he was motivated. He went and sat in the office. Same thing when I got a job working for Transit in 1998. So I hate to say that's almost 23 years ago. I called them up. I said to them, "Do you have any jobs? I'm looking for work as a traffic safety manager, blah, blah, blah." And they said, "No, we don't have anything right now." I said to them, "Okay, can I bring my resume down and drop it off?" And they said, "Yep, you can do that." So I went down to London Transit at the time. This is London, Ontario. I went into Transit. I said, "Is Jack here?" "No, he's not here. He's in a meeting right now." I said, "Okay, can I wait?" They said, "Yes, you can." I waited 2.5 hours for him to come out of the meeting. Two and a half hours late out of the meeting, he came out. I gave him my resume and my application. Had a little chat with him for 2 minutes. Told him who I was, what I did. The next day they called me up and they said, "Listen, we don't have any work for you here, but we do have a project that we need done, working, showing drivers how to work with people with disabilities on low floor buses." And I said, "Okay." So I went in and talked to them, and I got a contract for 3 months working with them. And it was because I went in and handed my resume in, right? And I was motivated. So this is what you got to do with companies. You got to show them you're motivated. 70% of jobs out there are not advertised. And you need to be motivated. You need to go to these companies. You need to say, "I am a truck driver. I want to work as a truck driver. I want to work for your company. I know what your company does. It hauls flat deck, primarily timber. You know what they do. You want to work for them, and you show them that you're motivated. They can train you, right, to do the work that you need to do, but they want to know that you're motivated and you're willing to learn to do the work that you want to do there." Okay, Jonathan, I also told everyone at school bus company about it, and everyone in the office was happy. I went out to Buffalo Wild Wings yesterday to celebrate my success. Awesome, Jonathan, that's really great. I'm so glad to hear that you went out and celebrated. Okay. Rocky, I would like to become a school bus driver, like Otto. Yeah, I know who Otto is, Rocky. That's awesome. Jordani, so I got this blue card after I passed my test in school. That means I don't need to take it at the DMV. I just do the vision test. Okay, and Jordani, where are you that you got your license? Epic, is there any way to obtain passenger endorsement on your Class A CDL without getting the CDL M restriction, which basically restricts you to drive a Class B and C? So, I met someone. Yeah, you can just go in and you can go to the DOT office and make an appointment, and you can go in and write those endorsements to get those on your license. That's just a matter of how you do that in the States for those tanker endorsements, passenger vehicle endorsements, and whatnot. That's all you have to do. Okay? Jaden, they showed up, and I did not know what was going on. Okay, well, we're glad to hear that you're all right, Jaden, rather. I'm sorry. You definitely have lots of adventures, my friend, that's for sure. Luke, how do I go about getting funding for CDL school in Canada? Luke, go to any of the employment agencies, employment offices, those types of things, and they will be able to direct you to where you go, who you talk to about the different types of funding that are available, and then you simply have to apply for those funding. A couple of years ago, there was $7,500 available for CDL training. You basically had to do a bit of research and then submit that paperwork to see whether you were eligible and were going to get approved for that, is what you needed to do. Okay, Jason, lots of trucking companies are hiring people straight out of truck driving schools. I got my truck driver license before the CDL license came into effect. Yes, and you're absolutely right, Jason. There are a heap of companies that will hire you, and as well, before you leave, even before you leave, when you're doing your training with the truck driving school, they will have a list of trucking companies that will hire new drivers. So definitely ask the truck driving school. And the other piece about this, excuse me, the other piece about this is start looking for a truck driving job even before you're finished truck driving school, even before you get your license. My buddy Bill, Bill Walker, there's 3 or 4 videos here about Bill. I've done interviews with Bill. Bill was my poster child. Bill came in, he did truck driver training with me at the school here in Vernon. Bill left on Thursday and he started work on the next Tuesday. He was working in the oil fields up in northern Alberta. Bill had started looking for a job even before he finished truck driving school. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. Bill was older, he was overweight, he had not great health. He knew that he wanted to go to northern Alberta and drive truck in the oil fields to try and make more money to retire in 3 years, and he had a 3-year plan to work in northern Alberta, and he did that. But look for your job before you finish truck driving school. As where'd you go? Jason said, there are tons of jobs out there where truck driving companies will hire you straight out of truck driving school, but they need to know you're there. They need to know that that's what you want to do. So talk to everybody, put your application and resume into every company so that you can get hired before you're even out of truck driving school. That way there's no gap from the time that you leave truck driving school to the time that you start working. And that is very possible, but you have to get on the phone. You have to do the work. You have to hand out your resumes and those types of things. Okay. So, excellent. Thanks, Greg. I'm glad we can help out. Jean, for someone interested in working with load boards, what part of Canada is doing okay? Writing from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I start my training next February. Okay, so, Jean, are you going to be working as an owner operator? Is that what you're going to be doing? You would need to get, I would suggest that you get into a forum with owner operators who are doing load boards and looking for their own loads and those types of things. If you're just getting started out, Jean, what I would suggest to you is to work for a company as a driver for a year, maybe 2 years, and kind of figure out the ropes before you jump into that whole kind of owner operator thing, because there's just so much that you have to know before you start, taking on the role of business owner, because that's what you are. You're a business owner driving a truck, right? And there's a lot of things that you need to know before you want to become an owner operator. So if you're just getting started in the truck driving industry, I would really counsel you to work for a couple of years as a driver before getting into owning a truck. Okay? Jobs for coach drivers, since I haven't seen a single advertisement in the past years except Greyhound. Are there any companies out there? There are lots of companies out there that are bus drivers and those types of things. I can't say that the coach industry hasn't been hit hard in the same way that the airline industry has been hit hard because of COVID. Now, saying that, hopefully with, kind of the vaccine coming in, we can kind of see the end of this craziness, and that, coach companies will be coming back online and those types of things. But, as I said, if you're going to consider getting a commercial license to work as a commercial license in 2021, I would really suggest and counsel you right now to get work as a truck driver, not as a bus driver. So that's really where I would counsel you to get started in that. Okay, asking for my permit and I'm 17. Okay, so Jordani, if you're 17 years old, you're going to have to wait till you're 19. I think it's 19. I would need to look up the regulations in New Jersey, and what I would suggest to you is to send me an email, rick@smartdrivetest.com, and I can look that up for you and get that specific information for you for getting your CDL license there in the state of New Jersey. Okay? All right, you need to get a better GPS there, Jaden. Okay, does anyone have knowledge of the CDL passenger endorsement road test, since it must be also taken in addition to Class B or CDL? Saw this on the New Jersey. Okay, so yeah, so basically it's just a matter of Epic. Most of the endorsements, there's no practical tests that you have to do. These are all knowledge theory tests that you have to take. So it's just a matter of studying the manual, the handbook, the commercial driver's handbook in your state, and then going in and writing that endorsement as part of your Class 1 license, and you'll get that endorsement. That's all that is involved in doing that. All right. Jason, there are trucking companies that will put new hires through a trucking school and the company will pay for the training, but the new hires will have to work for the company for a year. Yes, and that's definitely another option. That's another option that I encourage people to do. The only thing is that you're locked down into contract to work for that trucking company. And, if you find out after a couple of years that you don't like that trucking company, that could be pretty tough for you to get out of. Jonathan, what's better, manual transmission tractors or automatic tractors? Okay, Jonathan, I'm just old school and I am manual, I'm manual transmission all the way. But it's a lot more work, and I can see, new students coming into truck driving school and looking at how hard it is to learn how to drive a manual transmission. It's a bit tough. But here, where I live in the mountains, right, or anybody living in Washington State and running through the mountains, or Idaho or Montana or places like that, these automatic transmissions just won't stand up to it. And they won't stand up to the amount of weight that we're pulling around here as well, because we have a lot of Super Bs here that are running 140,000 pounds up and down the mountains. Automatic transmissions just won't stand up to that kind of wear and tear. You really need these big, old manual transmissions to do that kind of work. Okay? Jean, you're most welcome, my friend. Kittrix, can I apply to driving company even though I haven't received my BC license? You can, but you need to tell them exactly what you're doing. So this is Kittrix. Thanks for that. The other thing that I need to tell you is that when you say you're going to go work for a company and get hired on as a driver, you need to tell them what you're doing right now. Okay, I'm going to driving school right now. I'm in the first week of my driving training, and I'll finish in 5 weeks. I'm going to get my license. I'm going to pass my license, and I'll be ready to go to work at that time. And the trucking company might say to you, okay, well, call us back in 4 weeks, and we'll consider it then when you get your license. Or they might say, okay, we have an application for you. We'll start the application process. When you get your license, then we'll put you on and hire you as a driver and get you going. Okay, so that's the other thing that you could do as well. Felix, Winnipeg, what training need for B-Train? Felix, you need a Class 1 license or a Class A license. I'm not sure what it is in Manitoba. It's either Class 1 or Class A. And the other thing about going to truck driving school in Manitoba now is that now they're part of the MELT, the Mandatory Entry-Level Training Program. So you're going to probably do about 100, 120 hours of truck driving school training to get your license and start working as a truck driver. Okay? Epic. All right, excellent. So we're getting near the top of the hour here. So coach jobs, we talked about that. And okay, excellent. Jaden, happened to me is the past. It still makes me a little bit happy that Cape Coral police officers wristband, it still makes me happy. Awesome. Glad you got the wristband, Jaden. That's brilliant. All right, so if you have any questions, I haven't answered your question. You have any questions or want information about getting a job as a truck driver, going to truck driving school, those types of things, you can definitely leave me a comment down in the comment section. Hit that thumbs up button, and I'll get back to you. Send me an email, rick@smartdrivetest.com, and I'll answer all your questions and get you going here as a CDL driver to start driving as a truck or bus driver. And as I said, driving truck, it's recession proof, and it's also proven that it is in fact COVID proof. So, I've said many times that the only unemployed truck driver is the truck driver that doesn't want to be working. So there's always work. There's a lot of opportunities. If you don't like what you're doing and hauling general freight, you can go and haul flat decks, or you can haul reefer trailers, temperature controlled trailers, and pull groceries or something like that. Or if you're not working out doing long haul, you can go and work regional. Lots of companies that pump gas and haul gas, tanker trucks and those types of things. That's all regional work. Chip trucks, we have those here in British Columbia, running up and down the roads. Or you can do local work. I have a friend of mine who runs local. He hauls milk, tanker milk, and it's all local. He's home every night. He works in the afternoon shift, probably 4 to midnight, and he's home every day. So there's lots of different kind of work. And if you don't like driving truck, then you can go and drive bus. So there's work as truck drivers. So if you're considering going to truck driving school and you're thinking, oh my God, look at how much money it is. It's like $7,500, $10,000. It is, but there is good return on investment. You're going to make your money back guaranteed. I can almost guarantee that 100% to you. Okay, do it. Talk to me. Talk to other people. Get on the forums and those types of things, and talk to the other people who have gone to these truck driving schools. All right. Thanks very much for showing up. All the best. If you passed your license in the last couple of weeks, congratulations. If you have a road test coming up in the next week or so, good luck on that. And next week, we're going to talk about funding and how to get funding to go to a truck driving school. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.